What's good, everybody? The post-Alabama preseason thingy that we just went through for the last 3 weeks is over. We've got ourselves some conference games this week, and it's time to smash it up on a Monday night. He's Irish O'Fell, managing editor of Warchant.com. My name is Tom Lang, and you are watching the Monday Smash presented by State Farm agent Russ Forhis. Good Monday to you, Ira. We're getting some games with some juice now this week.
Great Monday. Yeah, man. It's going to be it's a really good week for college football in general, but certainly for the Noles, we're kicking it off Friday night. They'll kick off the weekend with the Virginia game, and I can't wait. I'm not sure with the Thursday night game. I haven't looked at that, but Friday night's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to that game in Charlottesville.
Me too. Virginia's got some juice to them, but also some things that I think Florida State can be excited about in terms of the matchup, and we'll get into that probably over the course of the next hour. But let's start with Florida State, if you don't mind, good sir, either from the coordinator interviews that were just after lunchtime yesterday or today's Mike Norvell or player availabilities. What are some top takeaways that you had? And now that Florida State's 3-0 and the Tommy Castellanos crisis is averted, he avoided the worst. What are some top things that you heard from either the coordinators or Coach Norvell?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest news is the injuries, the lack of injuries or the rehab from injuries. You know, they've done a really good job, I think, of scheduling, guys getting back for this game. They were fortunate. You know, if you had Alabama followed by maybe an East Texas A&M followed by a conference game, maybe you have to play Squirrel White last week. Maybe you have to try to rush Randy Pittman back, or maybe you have a tougher decision about what to do with Randy Pittman after, sitting for the East Texas A&M game. But everything's kind of worked out really well for them, knock on wood. And so they're going to get closer to full speed. They got LaWayne McCoy back at receiver this past weekend. Squirrel White was out there. He went through some warm-ups, so I think he could have played if they had to. So you're getting him back. Randy Pittman sounds like he'll be back. Kevin Wynn could be back this week as well on the defensive line. So it's just cool. That's the thing about sports is, you can always say, like my Orioles, Tom, like my Orioles. If you didn't have all the injuries, this might have been a good season. And so fortunately for Florida State so far, they haven't had to worry too much about that. Even the ones they've had have been pretty manageable, and they're getting those guys back now for this really important stretch coming up.
Obviously, Randy Pittman has some snarl to his game, and that's a good thing to add back into the fold. I will say, Ira, in the limited reps that LaWayne McCoy got, he's kind of nasty too. That one little throw to the left, he gets into a scuffle with the corner as they go to the ground, and there's a couple of extracurriculars after. I like to see that and some shiftiness from LaWayne as well.
It was weird. So I guess Corey and I were talking about at the time, like, did LaWayne try to stiff arm him, and that's what irritated the guy? But it was a little strange. Again, these games against these teams that, they know they're coming for a loss. They're coming for a paycheck and a loss. I thought this team was pretty chippy too. Now, maybe it's not fun when Florida State's out there trying to, break 100 points on you. But at the same time, I thought there was a little extracurriculars on that play and some others.
I thought after the major injury, which it sounds like the young man from Kent State avoided the worst, and he was, brought to TMH as precautionary measure. Thank you. I couldn't figure out the word. The precautionary measure to go to TMH. It seemed like I think the emotions ran high a little bit after that. It's not that they didn't have some nastiness beforehand, but I felt like as that thing got into the second half, also the lightning delay and the heat, I think in general, it was just an ornery bunch on that sideline. But Florida State might see that again this weekend with Virginia, who is kind of laying in the weeds, Ira, ahead of this game. They played NC State a few weeks back. They lost that game 35-31, but they're saving their punches for this one on Friday night. They run an offense that can roll out a few tricks kind of in the Gus Malzahn ilk, reverses and weird stuff. They're treating this game as the pinnacle of their season. And honestly, if you weren't paying attention, everybody, this is Virginia's second conference game. The NC State game was a non-conference ACC tilt. So the Cavs are 1-0 in the conference. They've got a lot of goals. In their mind, they've got a lot of goals in front of them. And if they score this upset on Friday, that sends their season into overdrive. It'll be interesting to see how nasty that game is on Friday night.
Yeah, and I think it's the best thing that could happen to Florida State is that Virginia's put up as many yards as they have and as many points as they have. They're I don't think Florida State thinks that Virginia's necessarily on their level. I think Florida State probably feels like they're a better team than Virginia, and they're going to go in there and impose their will and pick up this win on the road. But you can't take them lightly. You can't look at the statistics. And I know statistics don't mean as much based on who you're playing. We can certainly make that case for Florida State, who's now number one in the country in scoring offense and total offense, but we know the strength of schedule is not very strong right now, despite the Alabama game. But when you see those numbers and you see that Chandler Morris last week threw for nearly 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, that gets your attention. So I think it's the best of both worlds in the sense of Florida State's getting a team that Florida State should be able to handle, but also getting a team that's done enough to get your attention in the week before that Miami game.
It certainly sounds like they have Tony White's attention. He was on edge, I think would it be fair to say, in his press conference when speaking about the challenge ahead. They've got some good skill position players, and it sounded like Tony White is going to work very hard this week in practice. I know they're already in the midst of it in terms of Virginia prep because they had to move things up a day. But it sounded like he was going to work very hard to make sure the guys had that extra bit of attention and focus. Some things that maybe slipped last week against Kent State also provide that opening and that opportunity for Tony White. He sounded like he was in full-on motivator mode yesterday.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like that started probably about halftime of the Kent State game. And, after the game, when we talked to James Williams and Jerry Wilson, they both said that, it's not going to be a great film session tomorrow. The coaches are not going to be thrilled with how we played, especially before the lightning delay. And then when we asked Tony White about it, he's like, "Oh yeah, I was lighting into them during that delay because and you could watch it and tell they were not playing with quite the same passion that we saw in the first 2 games." I think that's probably a little natural. The first time out, obviously Alabama, Florida State was chomping at the bit. They did everything they could, and they were going to play as physical as possible in that game. They did that. I thought the East Texas A&M game was kind of I think the players probably saw that as a chance to kind of validate what they had done. Let's go out there and show them this is who we are. Then you have a bye week. Then you have Kent State leading into this Virginia and this Miami game. It makes sense to me that maybe you don't have quite the same fervor going into that game. Plus, we don't know in terms of game planning, and they may not have spent much time at all game planning for that game defensively. They may have been working on stuff for Virginia and Miami. We don't know. But it wouldn't surprise me if they were already working on stuff for Virginia and Miami. So you didn't see their best effort, but that gave Tony White a chance to really kind of, get their attention at halftime. And I think that has continued and will continue till the game on Friday.
If the Virginia coaching staff has watched this game yet from Saturday, they go, "Oh man, they gave up a busted play on a trick," because Virginia loves to break out the tricks. I'm sure they did not love to see that. Gus Malzahn can be surly. He can be brief, and he was yesterday. 6.5 minutes, I think he went in that presser. Did you like that he said the quiet part out loud about this is a lesser opponent, and we communicated that to the guys? I kind of found that refreshing. What did you think of that?
And he was talking about Kent State, right?
In the past, in review of the Kent State game, not moving ahead Virginia. Good point. Very good point.
Yeah. Listen, man, he's a head coach, right? So he knows the game in terms of, you wouldn't say that going into the game, but after the fact, you can come clean. And so, yeah, I think that was not too surprising for him to say that. And I think it was in response to Corey's question about, this offense has put up so many points, so many yards. I mean, it's kind of crazy what they've done. The first 10 drives the first 10 drives, I guess it was, of the East Texas A&M game, they scored touchdowns. Then in this game against Kent State, they scored on, I think, 11 of the 12 drives. So, I mean, it's just crazy. And I think if you look at what Tommy Castellanos, FSU put out the statistic, with Tommy in the game, I think they've scored touchdowns on 13 or 15 straight drives or something like that because he's left in garbage time and they've settled for some field goals. So it's really remarkable what they've done. And so Corey's question was, how do you make sure they're still grounded and aren't getting kind of carried away with it? And that's when Gus said, he's like, well, we were honest about it. There was a lesser opponent, but that's the really nice thing about this team. And I think it's going to help them when they go on the road this week, but I think it also helped them in that situation is that you do have a bunch of older dudes. I think if you had a young team with that just is playing great, maybe you'd see more of that. But I mean, I think you look at that offensive line, they're all 22, 24, 25-year-old dudes. Even the receivers are old dudes. The running backs are, everybody on that offense have been around the block. So I think that helps them in terms of staying grounded. I also think it's going to help them on the road this week. I mean, we're going to write it. Everybody's going to talk about it. This is the first road game, and we'll see what they look like. But I do think that from Gavin Sawchuk to Squirrel White to Deuce Rob, they've all played in great environments. And I don't think it's going to be a huge challenge for them to go on the road.
Yeah, in a sense, I think it's easier for the defense when you're on the road because it's quieter when the home offense is on the field, so they could probably hear each other's voices for the first time when they're out there and communicating through what they need to communicate through. But on offense, it was one of the remarkable things, Ira, from the first game of the season against Alabama and on down the line. Knock on wood if you're a Florida State fan, but not a lot of procedure penalties, not a lot of things where, two guys in motion at the same time. All those things that plagued Florida State, even in the good times the last few years, they've been pretty clean as an operation, but you got to play through a little bit of extra noise. And as loud as this place can get on Friday, it will, because Florida State is coming to town as a top 10 team. This is the old school kind of 90s and early 2010s draw that Florida State was at that time. So you're going to have to play through that. I think you're right. It's mitigated by the fact that these are all really old guys. It's almost like a BYU roster.
Right. Yeah, no, but that's a fair point. They are going to have to figure out, it's not just about dealing with, catching the ball and making plays in a hostile environment, but also, the communication. That'll be a challenge to some degree because they haven't had to deal with it yet. But again, Tommy's done it. The one thing I would say though is some of these guys, Tommy's the best example. I don't know how much crowd noise he's had to deal with in his career. Like Boston College wasn't bringing the best out of some of the stadiums they were going to. They certainly didn't last year at Florida State. So I think that's worth considering. That's something that we'll have to see. But in terms of just the what it's like to go on the road, staying in a hotel, traveling, keeping your body fresh, staying hydrated, all the things that veterans know how to do. From that standpoint, I think they'll all be well equipped to do that. I think when you look at this team, I just think it's a really good combination of some young playmakers, but so many experienced dudes. And I really think that's going to help them in every news situation, whether it's this game going on the road for the first time, the hype around the Miami game later this season when they go to, again, some hostile road environments like NC State. I think the experience is going to be big for them.
What about this team through 3 games do you like the most? You could call it the personality, the culture of it, whatever. What is it about watching them through 180 minutes of football that you like?
I think, from a big picture standpoint, I think they've got the right mix, man. Like, I think that they've hit it in terms of guys at the right stages of their careers, motivated the right way. And it's on both sides of the ball. I mean, we interviewed Gavin Sawchuk today. I'd recommend people go watch his interview. He's not saying anything dramatic. He's not a big talker necessarily, but he's a really good talker. He's a smart kid, but just the approach, it's a very professional approach. When we talk to Randy Pittman, same type of thing. Luke Pettibone, same type of thing. Like, there's across this team defensively. Jerry Wilson, the guy's got tons of personality, but man, says all the right things. And so, again, as bad as they whiffed on so many portal additions last year, and they whiffed incredibly poorly on so many portal additions last year, they've done such a good job this time. I mean, and that's part of it's by design, part of it's by targeting the right kinds of kids and the right combination of talent, experience, and productivity, but also the mindset. And then part of it's getting a little bit lucky. And so far, man, that from Deuce Robinson and Javen Boggs, a freshman, I mean, just everywhere you turn, these guys all kind of act like pros. And that's, man, it's in this day and age, to have kids to care about the team, but also have a professional mindset, that's been huge. So that's the biggest thing from a macro standpoint. I think from a micro standpoint, I just think that, Tommy and Gus, man, what a perfect combination. I mean, I really, I thought it would be a good combination to, I don't think I knew it would be quite this good of a combination. And I just think that, man, I think they're one and the same. I think Gus knows exactly how to use Tommy. Tommy's a perfect fit for what Gus wants to know. Again, they're going to face tougher competition. We'll see what it looks like. But that, to me, when you have that between a quarterback and a play caller, the sky's the limit. And so I just can't get over that.
Talk more about that in just a minute, but a perfect combination. I love that segue. That's you and State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. I'm talking to you, all of you out there listening now, watching right now. State Farm agent Russ Voorhis. Saw him outside of Doak Campbell Stadium on Saturday before the game against Kent State. He was fired up, Ira. Some more business coming his way from Warchant in the past week, which is very, very good news. Thank you to everybody who are Noles out there and they want to support Nole-owned businesses. And State Farm agent Russ Voorhis can help you if you live in the state of Florida, if you live in the state of Georgia, if you live in the state of Alabama. Excellent, first-rate customer service. I can speak to that and attest to that as a client. I hear our own Jeff Cameron's about to give his business to State Farm agent Russ Voorhis because he liked what he was hearing. This is awesome, Ira. He's got physical locations, but he's got expertise to help a big part of the Southeast footprint of our fan base here.
Yeah, no question. And, look, at some point, Rush, you're going to have to expand. We might need offices all around the state. But right now, he does have the brick and mortar locations in Jacksonville Beach and Orange Park over there in the Jacksonville area. So if you're in Waycross, Tommy Castellanos' hometown, or if you're in the eastern part of the state, or across to Tallahassee or Gainesville, you can go up there and do your business in person. But the rest of us, you can go online to russvorhis.com, RUSSVORHIS.com. And again, great customer service. They'll give you quotes that should be competitive. And again, it's always important to remember it's not always about just the quote and trying to get the best quote, even though we all want to do that. It's also making sure you've got the best coverage if something does go wrong. And Russ is a great guy, and he'll take care of you. And he loves the Noles, and he loves talking about the Noles. So if you reach out to their office, make sure you let them know you're a Florida State fan and you heard about them on the Smash and Warchant.com.
Ira, a lot of times that you see a football team and you like watching a football team, as I like this Florida State group, they might not check many boxes, but they check a few things well. Like they might be precise. They might have a lot of speed, finesse, technicality. They're very technically sound. This group are all those things, but I really like the fact that when push comes to shove, they will shove you to the ground and run right over you. You saw a lot of instances of that this past weekend. We're sure the deep shots are some of the big plays to start the game to Mekhi Danzy, and those are really fun. But then they'll get on the ground and they'll just run right through you and run straight ahead with Gavin Sawchuk, or Tommy will take off if you're not staying true and you're not keeping your eyes on him. He'll just take off and run for a touchdown, or he'll break contain and break off a big physical run or a long run for a first down. And defensively, I saw guys like Edwin Joseph and Jabril Rawls and a lot of those defensive linemen, Desir again, big hits, big physical moments. This group has lived up to that talking point that was laid before all of us, between the coaches, the coordinators, Mike Norvell in the offseason, that they wanted to play with a physical edge. They have brought it through 3 games, and it's a joy to watch.
Yeah, and I really like it. We've talked a lot about it on the defensive side of the ball, and that's obvious. We can all see it, and it's certainly important, and that's kind of usually seen as something you talk about on the defensive side. But I've loved it on the offensive side, as you said. And we did talk to Gavin Sawchuk today. I saw some people on social media calling him Saw Truck, which I like. Man, he's just a physical runner, and I really. It's the way he finishes runs, it just seems like he's not going to be denied down near the goal line. He's got 6 touchdowns now. I think in his career at Oklahoma, I think he had 9 touchdowns, or 9 or 10, and he's already had 6 in 3 games. And again, some of that's against inferior competition, but I just think he's the kind of guy you can trust him down near the goal line. He's going to get the hard yards. And I think he's a great guy for the young backs to see. Cam Davis, I thought looked a lot better than we've seen him before. I thought it was good for him to get those opportunities. Chroma already has that. But again, I just think being around a guy like Gavin Sawchuk's going to be great for him. We love Trey Benson. Trey Benson was awesome, but that really wasn't always Trey Benson's strength, those tough yards. He was more just, get him in space and he is gone. And I like what Sawchuk does. And I think it does something for the entire offense. And you see the way the receivers block, you see the way Pittman plays at tight end. There is a lot of physicality to this offense.
Trey, in his own way, was a frustrating player because I feel like, and Coach Yak, David Johnson, talked about this, at times things were blocked up for him and he wouldn't take it. And then there were other times that things were not blocked up and it would be 75-yard house call. Gavin seems to go where the play is designed for him to go, Ira, and then he'll maximize the yardage that he can get within that play, whether it's running guys over or just making sure he falls forward. I thought Sam Singleton did a really good job of that this weekend. I've been somebody who's been cool on Sam Singleton, but I think he was the second guy in the rotation this week. He got over 10 carries, but he also moved the pile a little bit too, and that wasn't really the name of his game when he first got here. It was one cut and go. It was hopefully he could be a pass protector because he can be a third down back for you that catches the ball out of the backfield. But he's added some physicality to his game. I think that's what when the room is talented like that, you're forced to go be able to become more well-rounded as a player. Sam Singleton really impressed me this weekend. If he comes out on the field, I won't roll my eyes anymore. I promise. That was an impressive performance.
Yeah, I think it's the competition, but I also think it is setting an example. When you have guys that are doing it the right way, we've talked about it a lot at the receiver group. You know, if you've got Deuce Robinson coming in and he's blocking, that sets the stage for the younger guys. Javen Boggs watching him and seeing how to play. And I think the same thing happens in the running back room. And if you've got the starter or one of the top two backs that's finishing his runs, showing you how it's done, and then they can sit in the film room and, you know, David Johnson doesn't have to explain what it should look like. He can show them what it looks like. And that opens up guys' eyes to what they should be doing. The other thing about Sawchuk that's really impressive to me is, and we'll see when they play better competition, what it looks like, but he's so patient as a runner. You know, I've always liked the Leon Washingtons, the Trey Bensons, the guys are get it and go, but it's fun to watch Sawchuk, man. Like you could see him kind of like, it's almost like, I don't know if you remember Trent Forrest in basketball. Like he would drive into the lane and it's like, dude, you've got like three dudes right around you. You can't just drive into the lane and keep dribbling and then decide but he did it. Like he was so strong with his dribble and he controlled his body so well that he could get in traffic, but never look rushed. Usually most guys, when they drive into the lane, it's full speed and throwing it up or kicking it out. And Trent he was strong enough with his dribble. He could operate in that space. And I think Sawchuk's got the same thing. Now we'll see better competition, faster defenses. Those holes close a lot quicker, but it's kind of cool to watch him run. He's a little bit different.
Yeah, I took a lot of L's last year in that Warchant top 40, Ira, but this year I put Sawchuk way up there because I thought, given the dynamics of this offense and looking at what he did at Oklahoma, he just understood the nuances of what these specific runs are asking him to do. And I think that's why they went and got him as a floor raiser, but then maybe as somebody who would materialize into a starter. Now, Roydell Williams coming back in a couple weeks' time. We'll see how, the carries get divvied up. I did want to ask you if you thought there was anything to Ousmane Kromah being, I think, fourth off the sideline this week. Do you think that was they're saving him for Virginia? Was there a message being sent there? I know that Twitter was ablaze in the second quarter saying, did Kromah get in trouble? Is he hurt? What the heck's going on? What did you make of that and how you saw the running back rotation work on Saturday?
It was definitely noticeable. And the fact that he started playing, he came in the second quarter makes me wonder if it was a 1 quarter disciplinary thing, like not quite a half. Sometimes what we usually see is somebody suspended for a game or suspended for a half, or maybe benched, they lose their starting assignment. It felt like maybe it was like, hey man, we're going to sit you the first quarter. Unless there's a different reason for it, we haven't heard anything about any disciplinary issues with him, but it could be something as simple as just not taking care of something in school or whatever it is. So I don't think it's a big deal by any stretch. It did seem interesting that once the second quarter started, it seemed like he was allowed to go back in the game.
Yeah, I know. I was texting our own Matt Lasser. I'm like, hey man, does he have his helmets on? Yeah. Like, does he have the pads on? What's going? Because from the TV side of it, they did not cut to the sideline at any point. I'm like, 32. Anybody? So I need binoculars through the television screen to be able to see it. We're going to take a lot of your questions here tonight on the Monday Smash as we're here on ACC Game Week, and we're going to start talking about some things that y'all have brought to the table. I know there's a staff-specific question, and I'm talking about the Warchant staff we'll get to in just a second. But we are going to get to that in 15 seconds after this word from our sponsor, State Farm agent Russ Forrest on the Monday Smash.
Contact Russ Forrest for an auto quote today.
If you have those questions, send them through on the machine now on Warchant TV's live chat on YouTube and on Facebook. Over 1,000 of you, 1,100 now across the Warchant multimedia footprint, over 400 on YouTube. Thank you so much for your support. Make sure that you hit the like button underneath this video, subscribe to the channel. It is absolutely free. So before I wipe this question up, Ira, is it true that you and Corey are going to be in a car together driving to Charlottesville?
So I was listening to Wake Up Warchant, and I heard the way Aslan phrased that, and I thought some people might think that was the case, and that is not the case. I am flying. Corey's driving with Stephanie from Atlanta. Okay. So, but he basically said that, Corey and I were back together again. People that remember Seminole headlines through the years when Corey and I used to drive to games a lot together, and I think people are hoping for some of that content. because it was always a good time, except the fact that it was never a good time. But no, it's not happening this time. Corey's driving with Stephanie. I'll be on a bird up to Charlotte, up to Richmond, and I'll be driving over.
So I'm going to rephrase Wes's question then. Yotam and Ira. Question for Ira: on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about your road trip with Corey to Charlottesville? How excited would you have been? Scale of 1 to 10.
I love driving with Corey because it's entertaining. I mean, it's the same thing as anything else with Corey. Like half the time I'm laughing at him or laughing with him, and half the time I'm like, why would you say that? Or what did you just, pulling my hair out? But it's entertaining. It's never boring. It's never dull. So I miss our trips. But he's got a better companion now. He drives with Stephanie, and so we don't get those anymore. Maybe we will. Maybe like we can push for Clemson. Maybe we do a throwback. But unless we get a sponsorship or something, I don't think Corey's going to voluntarily do it.
Fair. You know what? Everything's sponsored in this world. So that's now up for grabs out there. Let's see. Let's go ahead and wipe that question up from Carol. Good evening, gentlemen. Hoping we beat both Virginia and Miami. Me too. What do you think about beating both teams? I think it would drive the sports world crazy. Love it. I think there's a decent shot. I think there's a real decent shot that it happens. Ira, how sold are you on Miami and legitimacy of Miami being a top 5 or top 3 team?
I'm a little curious about Miami. I'm not 100% sold. Again, I think if you look at the teams, Notre Dame, it turns out may not have been all that good. You look at USF when they got them after their 2 really tough wins against ranked teams. You look at, and they played all their games at home. The one question everybody had about Carson Beck and going into the Florida game, because it really hadn't happened in their first games, is how's he going to handle pressure? Because that was his thing at Georgia. Like the book on him at Georgia, Nick Saban talked about it on game day Saturday. The book on him at Georgia was, if you can make him move, get him off his spot, he's a totally different quarterback and not quite as good a quarterback. And Florida did that at times, and Carson Beck didn't look great in those situations. So that's a real thing. And if you look at Tony White's defense, I feel like there's a chance they'll get pressure on him. So for those reasons, it's hard to say how good Miami is. I do think they'll be able to run the football. I think that's legit. I think that's kind of who they are. I think the defensive line's got a ton of talent. So that's probably legit. The secondary, they went out and got some good pieces. So I think they're a good team. I don't know that they're quite as good as they've looked, and but we'll see.
I feel like the second half of the Notre Dame game is going to be instructive in terms of how good their defense is, what they're susceptible to. Notre Dame got in a rhythm there and they rallied. That's going to be something we can learn from. Certainly, if you're trying to learn things about Miami's defense, you're not going to consult when Florida is on the offensive side of the ball in the last week. Dear God, we just lived that nightmare. It makes me laugh, Ira, but at the same time, I'm watching that offense. I'm going, I'm having PTSD from last year watching them.
It is crazy. And that's why, when you ask me like what stands out about this team or what I've liked about this team, it's just so important to have the right quarterback and the right offensive coordinator. And it doesn't look good. I mean, it just doesn't look like, I don't know how they get out of this. I mean, this isn't just a tailspin. That we're at the point now with Florida's offense where we were around this time with Florida State's offense last year, where it's like, man, this isn't just a matter of missing a throw here or there, or maybe some things aren't clicking, or you're going to get somebody back. I mean, they look fundamentally broken on offense. And so I don't know how they come out of that. Now, maybe they go to Tramel Jones. It sounds like DJ Lagway was in a boot today. So maybe some decisions get made there. But in terms of, the other thing that's going to be interesting to watch there is they played 4 games. And there's a feeling, I've heard some people in Gainesville say that the reason they're not going to fire Napier now is because of what happened to Virginia Tech and UCLA. Like, all these kids go in the portal if you fire them. And if it's in the first 3 or 4 games, they can still redshirt this year. So the thinking is that Florida's not going to want to fire Napier now because so many guys would go in the portal and redshirt this year and go somewhere else. But man, how bad of a look would that be if they wait till after the 4th game and then fire him after the 5th game and all those kids are stuck? And then I also wonder if those kids wise up to it and think, you know what, I don't want to play. I don't want to play another game. So that whole situation is going to be interesting to watch. Again, they're similar to Florida State in the sense from last year where they went into this year with expectations, and it's one thing to be a bad team, but you don't want to be a bad team who comes into a year with expectations. And that's what Florida is. They came in with expectations and they're terrible right now.
Boy, you're right. Playing keep away. It reminds me of when Major League Baseball teams would wait till after June 1st or June 15th to have an extra year of club control over a player.
He's up. Yeah.
Oh, man. If I was the tampering type, Ira, as a coach of a rival, I would make sure to communicate to those players' agents that, hey, look out for that 4-game rule, just in case. If you want to sit out this weekend, probably opens more doors for you, young man. Make sure that you tell your client about all of that. It's the weird world that we live in
like college. If you think you're going to leave when Napier gets fired,
yep.
Well, he's getting fired.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when.
Yes. And so don't lose that year of eligibility for some sort of moral guidance. No, make sure that you keep your ability to play elsewhere, like perhaps in Tallahassee, if your name is Vernell Brown or others. We'd welcome you. The challenge for Florida State defensively, we were talking about Beck and Nick Saban's thought about getting him off of his spot. Couldn't be more different this week, Ira, with the quarterback that Florida State's facing in Virginia and Chandler Morris. That's a guy you want to contain. That's a guy that you don't want to get outside of the pocket, or else you're in real trouble because he can move and motor, especially once he gets ahead of steam. There's legit quicks there from Chandler Morris. For Florida State, the edge rushing, setting the edge, rush lanes, that's a very specific challenge that they got a little bit of a taste of that with Ty Simpson, but Ty Simpson was never really looking to run. This guy will look to run. It's a bit of a different animal for Florida State on Friday night.
Yeah, I think the thing about Ty Simpson, and again, there's so many variables that could have affected him in that game. I mean, it was his first start. I'm sure there was some nerves, and he talked about that before the game. I also think, it's his first time getting hit in a long time. He didn't play a lot. He has not played a lot. And when he got into games, a lot of times they were already decided one way or the other. And so this was like a new experience for him, and he didn't handle it well. The other factor was he got hit hard. He really got hit hard a lot. And you would assume Chandler Morris, as old as he is, as much football as he's played, maybe he withstands that a little bit better. But yeah, man, he's a guy that looks very comfortable throwing on the run. He certainly can run, and you assume it wouldn't get rattled quite as easily. But again, the answer to all quarterbacks. I mean, going back to Michael Vick, when you talked to Mickey Andrews about their game plan in the national championship game, it was, yeah, man, he's going to get a lot of yards, but we just have to hit him till at the end of the game it starts to wear him down, and you saw that happen in that game. So the answer for all quarterbacks pretty much is just keep hitting them. Like, that's the solution, and that's certainly going to be the approach, even though, like you said, Morris can really move.
I'll bring up this question from Nick Snyder because he says, how concerning is UVA? I think on the offensive side, since we're already talking about it, there's legitimate concern there. They've got some very good skill position players. I love their running back, Jamari Taylor. That's a nice player right there who's diminutive, but he's a bowling ball. And if you're not bringing it, he'll run you over and run right through you. They've got a bunch of good wide receivers that the coaches have talked about, good playmakers. And then, of course, they got the quarterback who can do a little bit of both, running and then throwing. I think, Ira, this is going to be a good test, not only for the defensive front, but I think if you're measuring the growth of the linebacker room from last year to this year, I think this is the first test when you're looking at the coverage game, the decisions they have to make with the quarterback on the move, the misdirections that this offense is going to throw at Florida State, which mirrors a lot of what Gus Malzahn does. There's a lot of Norvell Gus because there's some differences in both of their offenses, but I see a little bit of both in what Virginia brings to the table. That's the side of the ball that you should be concerned about. I think Florida State is going to have its way with Virginia when Florida State's offense is on the field, but Virginia's offense, it legitimately has some good players that Florida State's going to have to match up with and not sleepwalk through this game for.
Do you think, and you've watched more Virginia than I have, I've watched some, but do you think they obviously they've hit a lot of big plays, but do you think they try to play keep away a little bit to keep Florida State's offense off the field some? Because that would be my approach. Looking at this Florida State offense, and if your defense is a little suspect, I wouldn't look to score too quickly.
They took the air out of the ball against NC State for the first chunk of that game. It ended up being a little bit closer in time of possession, like 33-27, something like that. But Virginia really had the ball for, it felt like maybe 20 minutes in the first half of that game. I think that has to be part of the math here. Not to turn this into a betting thing, but, last week, I love that total at 55.5. I'm like, I don't know. You're going to need like a monsoon to stop that from the overhitting. I would not touch the total in this game because the point you're making, which is I think Virginia understands that defensively they are extremely deficient. And so when you're trying to play complementary football, that might be a big part of the math here. Also going for it on fourth down and in maybe questionable parts of the field, because that extra 2 or 3 minutes you can run off the clock is invaluable. Their special teams isn't great too. From a kicking standpoint, the punter isn't great either. So that also could beget them being in 4-down territory when they're inside the 30-yard line for Florida State. And, of course, the trick plays that they like to run, the misdirections. There's just the whole bag of tricks, I think, is coming out this weekend. And I think part of that, to your point, is to shrink the game for as few possessions as possible, because the more possessions there are in this game, the better chance Florida State has to pull away and win by a lot.
Yeah, and the thing, there's been some discussion on our message boards over the Tribal Council about how serious of a threat this team is. I know we've already got people asking that, how big of a challenge or test this game is going to be. The other thing that I would point out is it's going to be, I don't know what the ceiling of how raucous Virginia Stadium can be, but it's going to be as high as it can possibly be, because you have a Florida State team coming in that's ranked in the top 10 in the country, but it's also not seen as invincible. This is not, one of the all-time great teams necessarily coming in with a pedigree where their fans aren't going to believe they have a chance. That's sometimes when you go on the road with the other team's fans don't really believe they have a chance. It's not going to be that great of a home field advantage. They believe, they're excited about what this team looks like in Virginia. They don't think Florida State probably as good as, especially you can make yourself believe it, especially based on who they played these last 2 games. So it's a beatable top 10 team in your mind. Plus you're playing really well. You've got an offense that's kind of exciting. You haven't been good in a while. And so I think all those reasons, it's going to be a great crowd. I mean, I think they're going to be very much into it, and it's going to be a challenge from that standpoint. Now, if you're trying to, paint the picture as a coaching staff, if you're Tony Elliott and his staff of how we're going to win this game, I think it is, man. You get that crowd going, ball control, punch it in when you get chances, take advantage and put some game pressure on Florida State's offense. Because then at some point, the pressure is going to be on Florida State, just like it was on Alabama when they came here. When you're the favored team, when you're the higher ranked team and you go on the road and it's not going great, now you have to start dealing with game pressure. So that's the scenario that Florida State has to avoid. So the defense has to play really well. And then the offense has to kind of just be composed and not try to force things because, maybe things aren't going exactly the way they hope.
Are there any memorable games that you've covered up there in Charlottesville? I mean, I can remember Willie's team going up there, and it was a nail biter down to the wire, and they missed a couple of things that could have easily won the football game. But
that was a pretty gross loss.
I remember it as a kid, 95. Like, I remember watching that in my living room with my dad. But, I mean, is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, the other one was the Marquise Hagan's game. I think it was 2005, where, they had a real athletic quarterback, probably – similar size to Castellanos, was not an all-time great quarterback, but he certainly was on that night. That dude hit every throw possible. You've got receivers making tiptoe catches on the sidelines. Marquise Hagan's it was like an out-of-body experience. Every throw was right on the money, and that was a good Florida State team. They had a really good defense, a bunch of NFL guys on that defense, and they just could not get off the field. Hagan's just converted third down after third down. That was about as maddening of a game. I think about the games that like Florida State's lost that really stick in my mind are the games where it just felt like everything had to kind of go right for the other team. And that was one. Obviously the NC State game when Florida State's up 16-0 in the fourth quarter was another one where, Glennon's just completing these fourth down prayer. Florida State's got 2 guys in position to pick off a pass. They've run into each other. I mean, just so many things kind of went against them. And so that was a game to me that I just could not believe. It wasn't, I don't say it was fluky because he made all the throws, but it was like that kid never looked like that before or after.
This kid can throw it a little bit. He can spin it. But one thing I'll tell you, everybody, if you want to watch Virginia stuff this week, first of all, I salute you for wanting to watch Virginia football and lead up to the game. Don't watch the Stanford game. Or that defense.
Stanford's defense, man alive.
My God. And they're leaving these kids on islands in man-to-man. I mean, these are not difficult throws for Morris to make.
Not a lot of athleticism in that Stanford defense.
Holy crap. I mean, and if they wanted to run it up the middle, that their O-line is surging for 3 and 4 yards. You will learn nothing, everybody. I just went through the condensed game, and I'm glad I didn't go through the whole game because that would have been another hour I would never have gotten back in my life. Yikes. But this is an apt opponent. This is a game opponent, and we'll see what Florida State does on Friday night. We get a couple questions about the O-line and the D-line. Zyler says, what are your thoughts on the offensive line depth? And then Average Man says, O-line and D-line question. How competent do you feel the two teams, the second teams, are? Can we win games with only them in? Double up on the questions for the OL, so I guess we'll lead there, Ira. Any thoughts on what you've seen so far from them?
I'm going to lean on you a little bit in the second team offensive line, because what happens just behind the scenes in the second half of these games, a lot of times I'm writing the game story because we have to have the game story up as soon as the game ends. So when some of the backups are playing, I'm going to go back and watch the video, but I have not done that yet. So I didn't get to see how some of those second team offensive linemen played. I know they played a lot. Gus was excited about that. He was happy they got those guys so many reps. But I don't know if you saw how they looked. I didn't get a chance to.
I think it's really hard to tell because they didn't rotate any of those guys in for the Alabama game, and these last two, I don't know. Now, on the other side of it, the defensive line, the second team looked great against Alabama. I mean, there wasn't a big drop-off when you had the Desirs come in, when you had Deontay McCray come in. Diggs made a play on a cleanup sack because of the stunt that was run. And I'm not mentioning Darrell Jackson, who took on double and triple teams in that football game. And Daniel Lyons has emerged into a really solid to very good player. You might want to see some more production from your edge rushers. But Ira, I really think that the two deep, the second line of that defensive line depth chart, especially when Juju Wynn gets added back into the fold here in the not too distant future, I feel very good about the defensive line, but I have to give an incomplete grade to the offensive line given the talent they've been going against.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the defensive line, that's why I was more curious your thoughts on the offensive line, because I agree 100% on the defensive line. I think that it's deeper than I expected. They've hit on more guys. I mean, I certainly had no idea that Mandrell, even though Tony White back in the spring was talking up Mandrell Desir and Darrell Desir, you just didn't know if you could really count on them. But, man, they belong. I mean, they belong in college football playing as true freshmen. They play with a tenacity that you love. But then also these other guys, as Shed and KJ Sampson, some of these other guys that will get in that rotation. I think there's no doubt that they'll have the depth they need. I thought it was interesting. Tony White yesterday was asked, I think it might've been Corey asking him how many guys does he want to play on defense? And he said, the magic number, varies depending on the game, but somewhere in that 18 to 20 range, maybe on defense. Well, that's pretty much, you're rotating your defensive linemen. You may rotate in a couple linebackers. You're not going to rotate your secondary much. But I think they feel good about that group. I think going into the season, you might have thought they felt good about maybe 15 guys. But I think now they feel good about 18 to 20 guys. And I think a lot of that is that defensive line rotation.
One of the things that to break away to his different segment group on defense, I'm looking at that defensive back core and how they rotate in this game, because they rotated a ton. This past weekend, Jabril Rawls, as I said, got back in there, which was great to see. I'm interested to see Quindarius Jones snap count at the end of Friday night's game. I'm interested to see the safety rotation and those snap counts after this game is over. I think that's part of where the shrinkage might be coming. There's your hashtag shrinkage term of the night, is for the secondary and the guys that they tab in there. What percentage of the snaps go to the ones, and then how much do they rotate? Because Virginia does have apt receivers. They've got a good tight end as well that can break away and make you pay if in coverage you're in a one-on-one situation and you cheat a little bit. Morris will hit him down the field as well. I wonder how many guys they trust against this type of quarterback. They did a very good job covering in the first game of the year, Ira, because a lot of times Ty Simpson took off to run because everything was bottled up. It's been a while since we've seen this group be tested. I'm interested to see what names are out there to battle against an offense that I think has a little bit more in the trickeration department downfield, where your cues and your consistency are going to be tested. Yeah,
and there was one that was kind of in the same lines of Usman Kroma. Edwin Joseph didn't start and didn't play for a while in that game. I'm not sure what was going on there either, whether it was a disciplinary thing or whether it was just trying to give a look at some younger guys. That was a comment somebody made in the chat, that maybe the reason Kroma didn't play much early was to give Cam Davis those at-bats and to see more of Sawchuk, and that's very possible. We don't know of anything disciplinary, but usually if a guy sits a certain amount of time. But Joseph's another guy that didn't play for a little while in that game, at least that I caught. I didn't see him early in that game. But, KJ Kirkland has played a ton. Shaheem hasn't been playing as much lately. Now, he got banged up in the East Texas A&M game. So, we'll have to see how that plays out. But the corners, clearly those three are the top guys. I mean, it's Jerry Wilson, Jabril Rawls, and Quindarius Jones. And I think all three of them can play. I've seen enough out of those guys. I feel pretty good about them. The linebackers in coverage, we haven't seen a ton of them in coverage. But I think one interesting personnel thing there was Stephon Thompson was, I think, elevated over Omar Graham as a starter in that game. I'm not really sure if it was just based on what Kent State was doing or if it's because he has passed him on the depth chart. But yeah, there's still some personnel stuff to kind of see how it plays out.
Again, this week is going to be about containing the quarterback. Next week is going to be about plugging the middle of the line. The next week is a Darrell Jackson game against Miami. And to that point, Panama Jack says it would be nice to have Wynn back at full strength to help in the D-line rotation against Virginia and Miami. Dude is built to plug up the interior of that offensive line. It sounds like, Ira, I know that Mike got into it today a little bit about like the injury reports and how valuable they actually are or they aren't. It sounds like it's legit questionable, trending doubtful for Kevin Wynn this week. Am I too strong in that assessment? What do you think about his chances of playing Friday night against Virginia?
I mean, I think he presented it as more questionable. I would lean towards what you're saying. I would think so he practiced some today, and I think this was his first day back as far as we can tell. And so now the question is, okay, how does your body respond to that? So if you had some sort of injury, which he did, does it swell up? Does it feel great tomorrow? Does it not feel as good tomorrow? So they don't know yet. But I don't know that this is a huge Kevin Wynn game, to your point. Like, I think this is more of the Desir twins game and those guys who can really run, because they're going to try to get Morris on the run, get him out of the pocket, throwing and running. So, I think if you can get Kevin Wynn to where he's 100% for Miami or close to it, I think that's what you'd rather do. So I would lean towards him not playing, but the way Mike Norvell presented it to us is that he'll probably be questionable.
A note from director Nick Carlisle behind the scenes. Thank you very much, Nick. Of note, Chavez Thompson took second-team reps at center on Saturday, 36 snaps as opposed to 17 against East Texas A&M. That was something that bore out on the depth chart before the game as well. Sandman Thompson as a freshman, they really love him. Like him, Ira.
Yeah. I mean, they love him, which is awesome, man. Like, when's the last time, to have a freshman center that these coaches are this excited about is awesome. And there's no reason he couldn't be the starting center next year when Pettibone is moved on. So yeah, that's a big development. I knew they liked him when they signed him, but you don't expect a freshman center to be that impressive, and they love him. I don't even know that they're going to worry about redshirting him. I mean, they've played him now in two different games, and I think if there's opportunities in the second half of the season to play him in some of these games to get him ready to be a starter next year, I bet they do that, and they put a priority on that over necessarily just preserving the red shirt.
Was there something for subscribers only at warchant.com, Ira, relative to the Miami game, Lee Corso? I'm seeing some stuff in the chat. What happened? What's going on there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm expecting Lee Corso is going to be at the Miami game from what I'm hearing, from what I was told. It's not set in stone, and that's what I did. So I didn't write it as an article. It is on our message boards, but we'll share it with the friends here on the Smash. Because Lee Corso is, up there in age. So they're still, just working out the logistics that he can get here. And just, be comfortable, not have to worry about anything health related. And so the plan is for him to be here for the Miami game, which will be awesome. I don't think they're going to announce it probably till they've got everything planned and they know he's going to be able to make it, because you don't want people to be disappointed. But that is the plan, is to try to get him up here for the Miami game.
Just him being here would be amazing to be recognized. But if he can plant the spear, Ira,
those, I think these are some of the logistics they're trying to figure out, like what's all possible. Because He's probably not riding Renegade onto the field, but I do think they're trying to figure out what he's comfortable with and what he's able to do.
In his younger years, he most certainly would have. I mean, he rode motorcycles and all kinds of stuff for game day. He most certainly would have gotten on Renegade if he was allowed to back in the day. Noel-tastic, thank you for being a member of the channel. Says, if you don't watch Stanford, who are you going to watch? William and Mary, Coastal Carolina, NC State. I'm being told this offense is good, but they haven't played anyone. That's one of the limitations of, even though we're about a month into the season, there's a lot of teams out there, Ira, that you don't know who they are. And that's going to be one of the fun things this weekend of watching on Saturday. That slate from noon all the way through the primetime window. You're going to get a better window into what this top 25 actually is. Who's good, who's not. The answer to an Noel-tastic question to me is NC State. That's the best crack you got.
Right.
At trying to learn. But they went up and down the field on NC State, did Virginia. So they've been pretty consistently productive week to week.
And NC State clearly is not a very good football team. But let me ask you this. So, and I was going to bring this up tomorrow on Headlines with Jeff and Corey. We've always joked through the years, about the advanced metrics and what they mean. And certainly I get that the traditional scoring offense and total offense don't tell the whole story. And I get that. But like I looked at the Fremau FEI ratings, and so they've got Florida State like 45th in the country.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, I get it. They have not played great competition these last 2 weeks, but what more could they have done against those teams? Like what they put up 500 rushing yards against one of them. They put up 70 something points against the other one. I don't know what you can do. Is it basically like, as long as you play teams that are not very good, you can't? I mean, and the problem is, there are teams above them that have not played very good teams either. So even the advanced metrics, I think, are going to be challenged in this era where the rosters are so fluid. It's like we've seen with the FPI, where the rosters are so fluid and you don't know what anybody's got. And these early season games, I just don't know what to make of them. So I'm curious, like you, and I know you probably look at it more than I do, but how do you gauge that when you see some of those things?
You got to take a look at the data set. A lot of times, I don't know if the FEI has adjusted for this, but it used to be like a 2 or 3 year data set, rolling averages. And so you're going back in time to a place that you can't go anymore because there's no continuity for rosters. I wonder if there was a season adjusted FEI where Florida State would be. If it was just for 2025, I'll bet they'd be better than 40th, but I don't know. Maybe that's what the numbers are saying, but that's wild to me. Alabama might be fraudulent this year. They look good against Wisconsin, and obviously they hung 70+ on the ULM after playing Florida State. But Ira, I mean, what Florida State did to Alabama has to be noteworthy. It's certainly more than anything Virginia's done to any of their 4 opponents this season. They really took it to Bama, and that's a very talented bunch if you're just looking from an NFL Combine standpoint.
Yeah, I think, and I can't remember exactly where they are, but if they're not top 10, they're close to it. And that's a team that Florida State beat by a couple touchdowns. So, again, I'm not making fun of those things. And I get why people make fun of, I used a tweet with the scoring offense, total offense. And I get the people who are like, yeah, but look at those two opponents. I get it. But I'm just saying neither side is perfect. Like, I don't think the advanced metrics can figure out what this sport is right now either.
Agreed there. Let's see. Brett says in the chat, Bobby said many times you can't get them fired up every game, and you better not try. There are only 3 or 4 true fire-up games a year. He's referencing, obviously, what was Kent State versus East Texas A&M. You saw a little less intensity. I think some of that had to do also with the lightning delay and the weird stoppages and the stop started the whole thing. One thing when you have that long of a break, I know the trainers do a lot of extra work to make sure that the kids don't totally cool down so they can go back out on the field and not have any injuries of any kind. Speaking of that, it sounds like Chase Lofton avoided the worst, Ira. Mike Norvell said today that he's a wide receiver this year, but I think he projects as a tight end down the line in his career, that he's going to miss some extended time. But that looked in the moment like that could have been a lot longer than it sounds like Mike Norvell is implying for Chase Lofton.
We'll see. He did say he said a period of time. In a period of time, when the last time he used a period of time, it was with Roydell Williams. And, we expect that to be anywhere from 3 to 4 to 6 weeks or so. We don't know exactly. So maybe that's what it is. But like you said, it was a non-contact injury. Those are usually not good. So we'll see. But you hope it's not season ending. He didn't announce that it's season ending, and he does do that occasionally. So I think that's why you're thinking maybe it's not so bad. But, it's just hard to know exactly because period of time can mean anything, absolutely anything.
We don't know if game day is coming to Tallahassee just yet, unless that happened this evening. And if they announce that, then I apologize. But Florida Man Alabama says, "What sign will Ira bring to game day next week?" Would you, if you were in the crowd, it's outside of Doak Campbell. Which I wonder, are they going to be outside of Doak? Or are they going to be inside in the palatial setting of the alumni sideline? I wonder where they're going to be to set up for that if game day does make its way to Tallahassee. Do you have an idea for a sign? You used to watch that show every day, good sir.
I did. And I actually watched it again a little bit. I think that, now that it's been over a year since the snub, I've started to kind of relax a little bit. I'm watching it a little bit. I watched some of this Miami one, those classic, and I'm not going to say what the sign says, but Miami fans got some signs past the censors using Spanish, which was good. It was interesting to see how that played out. But I think, my guess is the last time they came was 2014 and they were out on Langford Green. And my guess is they would do that again, except there is, the questions of, if they do come, the concerns about, Kirk Herbstreit and whether or not he'll have anything to deal with. You'd assume that nothing would happen, but if they are concerned about that, I guess theoretically they could put it inside the stadium, but then what's even the point? So my guess is it would be on Langford Green, but I guess another option would be, I think that's where it would be if they do it.
Xander says, has a team ever gone as bad as 2-10 and then undefeated the very next year? I don't think so, but this is an unprecedented time.
And it's not just the 2-10 to what they are now and possibly having a great year. It's the combination of 13 wins, high expectations, 2-10, then not really high expectations, concerns about whether or not it was going to work out, to now possibly like a great college football team. It's just crazy. I cannot imagine there's been anything ever like this before.
We're going to get to some promos in a second, but I'm wondering, and James C. says, what's the latest on the K-State player that got hurt? It was precautionary that they took him to the hospital, TMH. I think everything's been okay. It was confirmed, James C. We've got a James B and a James C now. Okay. That everything was responsive. He was moving. Legs, arms, he was responding to commands. So there was everything that they were looking for, they got inside the stadium at Doak Campbell. And then it was just for extra precautionary measures, they took him to TMH.
Yeah. And we didn't follow up, but the Democrat did, Jim Henry and those guys. And they found out that he was released back to the team, and he went back with the team. So to Kent State, to Ohio. So yeah, he's perfectly fine, but yeah, it was definitely a scary moment.
Do you think Florida State was in favor, Ira, before we get to promo stuff, of a 9-game conference slate in the ACC? What do you think? Because the ACC announced today that in 2027, every team but one, because of the way the math works out, will play a 9-game ACC schedule. One other team will play an 8+2 model. Do you think Florida State was in favor of that?
I don't know for sure, but I think they didn't have a choice. I mean, the ACC had to do it once, these other conferences are all doing it. And I think when you also look at it from a standpoint of all this talk that Jim Phillips has been doing over the last couple of years about the need to schedule better opponents, to play more Power 4 teams, it all just, this is where they have to go. They have to go this way for TV and now because these other conferences are doing it, Jim Phillips basically told us at ACC kickoff, if the SEC did it, they were pretty much going to have to do it also. So I don't know that Florida State wanted it or didn't want it, but I don't think it mattered. I think the conference knew they had to do it. I did see somebody mention on our message boards or on Twitter, somebody asked, doesn't Florida State or Clemson have veto power because of the lawsuit? There was something about veto power. That wasn't related to the scheduling. It was related to the terms of leaving the conference. If the ACC wants to make any changes in terms of the buyout structure or, what the payouts are at different years and things like that, then Florida State and Clemson do have some veto power, but they don't have veto power in every decision. And so even if they were against it, they couldn't stop this.
Broward Noles says, with a 9-game conference schedule, can you lose 2 and still make the championship game? Not unless this conference gets a whole lot better, because, with 8 games right now, there are some teams that just skate. If one of the powers is down, they skate. And Georgia Tech has that this year because Clemson was down. SMU benefited from that when Florida State was awful last year, Ira, because they didn't face any of the other major powers. Louisville's had that schedule. Frankly, if North Carolina was any good, they'd take advantage of it. And Cal has a nice schedule this year, too, within the ACC. So I don't know. I would list that as pretty doubtful that a two-loss ACC team would make it to Charlotte in the 9-game model.
Yeah, I agree, and that was why the pressure came. Why the conference had to do it. I mean, if the Big Ten was putting pressure on the SEC to do it because they were doing it, the ACC couldn't just keep going the other way. And listen, I mean, I think for some of these teams, we've been talking about NC State's schedule for all these years. It's been ridiculous that they don't play more top teams or more Power 4 teams. It seems like they schedule 3 or 4 wins every year before the conference play even starts. And so, if you're trying to be a conference that can bring in revenue, can get television ratings, the idea of playing 10 Power 4 teams, it's not great for the smaller schools, but it's definitely, I think, what the ACC needs to do.
This is a condensed week here on Warchant.com and Warchant TV as Florida State kicks off Friday night in their ACC opener and their road opener for this season. It should be very, very interesting to see how Florida State takes the show on the road. Ira, what do we expect here on Warchant.com? And I know the press conference situation is going to be a little bit different because of the short week as well.
Yeah, so the week, basically the way the week lays out is usually we do interviews with Mike Norvell and assistant coaches and players Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. This week, it's just today and tomorrow. So Tuesday, we'll get Mike Norvell again. We'll get some assorted players. We did get the coordinators the other day, so we'll have plenty of things to write about throughout the whole week, but there will be no interviews after Tuesday. The team will practice on Wednesday, and then Thursday they'll do their normal Friday kind of walkthrough type practice, and then they'll travel on Thursday and play the game on Friday. But yeah, all of the things that we do on the site, like the matchup analysis, that'll be coming earlier. The Warchant report will be coming earlier. All this content, we've got to squeeze it into these 5 days. But the best part about it is it's going to give us more time on the back end to start talking about that Miami game, because the Virginia game is going to be over Friday night. We'll have plenty of coverage on the site at warchant.com on Saturday from that game. But then all of a sudden from there, from Sunday on, it's going to be wall-to-wall Miami coverage, and cannot wait for that football game. Hopefully Florida State does what they need to do on Friday night, and it really is the Titanic matchup that we're all waiting for.
It's a numbers game, law of large numbers. I'm sure that there are 4 or 5 people who are now saying, oh, yeah, the Miami game. Yeah, I didn't talk about that. It's a 7:30 kick. It's on ABC. Maybe somebody's, oh, it is? Yeah, sorry about that, burying the lead. It is a 7:30 kick under the lights. Ira, pinch yourself.
It's awesome.
We're going to get that matchup. If Florida State takes care of business, it's going to be a top 10 matchup. If Florida State takes care of business and gets a couple of breaks from other teams, it's going to be top 5 Florida State, Miami under the lights at Doak. Could you have imagined, sir, before the Alabama game, this is where we could be?
And the best part about it is it's not the season opener. Because, again, some of those years in the last couple decades where Florida State and Miami played and it was maybe one team was in the top 10 or maybe both teams were ranked, but it turned out neither team was very good or one of the teams was not good at all. But this is like, we've seen it. These are 2 of the best teams in college football. Unless something drastically changes to these rosters, these 2 teams, I think, are going to be very strong contenders to be in the playoff, to win the ACC. And it's awesome, man. It's just, it's very cool. And then to have it at night, man, that whole weekend is going to be, I know Jeff already declared it a Cat 5 maintain.
He did.
Which is a little interesting because we don't know about the Virginia game yet, but I appreciate his effort to get the forecast out early. And we'll see if the European model agrees, but we're going to get a Cat 5 maintain. And I just cannot wait for that weekend, but obviously business to attend to for this team on Friday.
European models, they're AI models now. I mean, yeah, good Lord. I think, though, they're all going to agree, and Jeff did it for the public good to make sure that they understood with plenty of time. If you want to enjoy yourself Friday and then the full Saturday of college football that you get to watch all the other teams across the country. It's a very nice slate this weekend. Head over to warchant.com, sign up for just $1 today for your first week of warchant.com. You will be bonused a membership to The Athletic, a 1-year subscription, so your entire sporting portfolio is covered with us at warchant.com, the largest FSU fan community in the business and the best Florida State football coverage, best Florida State coverage overall at warchant.com. Hit the like button on tonight's video. Subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. We really appreciate everybody who brought questions to the table tonight. Appreciate Director Nick Carlisle behind the scenes. We're going to get to the one more thing in 1 second. Let me thank, I know, the State Farm agent Russ Forrest for sponsorship of tonight's program. And now remember the one big thing for SVP? It's the one more thing with Irish O'Fell.
Does he still do the one big thing or does he not?
I haven't watched ESPN
Okay.
that late in a long time, but
Right.
maybe.
The one more thing, Ira's one more thing. We should have a graphic. Baseball practice, fall baseball practice, and men's basketball and women's basketball also are all starting this week as well. So we'll have a bunch of interviews tomorrow with Luke Laux, some of the men's basketball players, Link Jarrett, some of the baseball players. Practice is going to be open to the media, so Matt Lacer will have some content coming from that as well. So that's going to be going on tomorrow afternoon. So check out warchant.com and Warchant TV. And if you haven't subscribed to the Press Room, Warchant's Press Room channel, it's a separate YouTube channel for just a lot of interviews and press conference things that don't make it on the main channel. So look for that. That's where some of those interviews are going to show up.
Unmute myself. The link to that channel is now available in the live chat right now. If you're watching on Facebook or Warchant TV, there's the link. That thing has been sleeping for a couple weeks. It's about to wake the hell up tomorrow. And there's going to be some excellent content available to you on Warchant Press Room from other Florida State sports. It's a busy time and a really good time. We hope you're buckled up for a good week of content here on warchant.com, Warchant TV. Remember, in your podcast feeds right here on the channel, Wake Up Warchant at midnight. They post it late, so you can enjoy it whenever you start your day on a Tuesday. Seminole headlines coming your way live on Warchant TV tomorrow at 1 p.m. For Ira, I am Tom. We say good night, and we will talk to you next time right here on Warchant TV. The smash next week will be for Miami week. There may be shots.